Okay, Yasser, go ahead now, thanks.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Today, our Food Safety Friday webinar is related to the food safety incident management and how the organization or the company deal with the incidents and how they can handle it in a more professional and more organized way. So we'll have a kind of like introduction and some key definition for some important key elements for the incident management. And then we go for the incident causes, or what is the main possible causes for any instance. And then we go for the team responsibility and the main topic, which is the incident management process. And finally, we need to verify and do a kind of continuous improvement and with a final conclusion for the whole webinar. So starting by an introduction, every day we are hearing about food safety recalls from different organizations and also for food safety poisonings. And this is all like a kind of small instance which is coming more big and lead to finally a crisis and recall and a big loss for many organizations as well. So in such case, for any food safety related calls, which is becoming now more commonplace, it's essential for any incident response team to understand and implement the process that will help and support them how they can handle such events in a most transparent and effective way as well. So how is a company choose to function in the middle of crisis? This is the more effective way, and it should be on the more earlier stage rather than to go for an entire business impact and also going for a more critical and more crisis for the whole organization itself. So for the incident management may mean different things to different people. And we have on such thing that we have three main key elements for the incident management. And before we go for the incident management process, we need to get some more key definitions for such keywords. The first one, which is the most important, as I believe, that's about the risk itself. So for the risk, the potential that a chosen action or activity, including choice of inaction, will lead to a loss or an undesirable outcome. So it's meaning that it can be a potential action or a potential activity, and finally, it can lead to a loss for the whole company itself. And how we can manage such risk, this is very simply, it's related to practices designed to prevent a situation from occurring from beginning. So the highest earlier stage for the incident management is how we can manage our risk before it's going to the incident, and how we can then go and manage the incident before going to the crisis. So for the food safety incident definitions, it's very simply an event where, based on the information available, there are concerns about actual or suspected threats to the safety of food that could require intervention to protect the health of consumers. So it can be a kind of potential incident, or it can be a real incident that's already done and already conducted there. So how we can manage such incident? That's very simply the situation that already occurred, and it's time to limit the damage by stopping the incident from becoming a crisis, which is the incident management. Then we go for the crisis, and crisis, any event that's expected to lead to an unstable or dangerous situation that's affecting group, individual, community, or whole society, which is the more critical than the incident and risk. And at this point, the damage has occurred or continuing, and the response has to be swift to clean it up, in some cases to limit it, which is one of the heightened incident level. Is called crisis management. So we start by the risk, and then we go for the incident, and finally is a crisis. It's like a kind of three key categories for how to deal with any instance in the organization itself. So what do you think that's the best management approach? Are we need to have a risk management, or to have an incident, or crisis management? Actually, the three, it's very key elements, and it should be logically the design of the program begins with a risk management, followed by incident management, and ending with a crisis management. So starting by how we can reduce the risk, how we can eliminate, how we can prevent the risk in order to not have or to be shifted to an incident, and how we can again to handle and manage the incident in order to not ending with a crisis, which is having a whole impact for the whole company or the whole business. So however, since this process of risk, incident, and crisis management are very similar, all may be prepared at the same time. So it's not like a kind of chronological order. Sometimes we can do it all in the same time, and it can be integrated with the company business continuity plan. Then we go for the three elements again. That's the issues for concern and their management are the same, just the degree of urgency and escalation can be different. And it must be understood that implementation of a risk management process doesn't always prevent the risk or incident or crisis. And the value for the well-designed program brings is in the preparedness of the organization for any inevitability. So it's meaning that if we are well prepared for how we are dealing with a risk or an incident or crisis, this is the most successful way to handle all of these issues in order to not have a crisis at the end of the problem or the incident itself. So when the incident does occur, success is evident when the organization first prevent panic and chaos, second stop the incident from becoming a crisis. So all of this, the organization, when they are facing an incident and it's already occurred, but not due to failure in its own program, yet the organization must respond and prevent the incident from becoming a crisis for its own business. And naturally, there are also some cases where the incident is direct result of action taken by organization. In either case, whether the organization is directly or indirectly involved, the incident must be managed in a more professional and more organized way. Causes of incidents. There are different causes of incidents, and this causes can lead at one point to have a crisis, as we described before. So there is two groups or two categories for the types of incident. That's first is food related, and second is non-food related. So, for example, food related incidents can be contamination of raw food or raw materials, consumer illness, allergens, chemical residues, foreign objects or foreign matters, packaging issue, supply chain interruption. So as an example for the allergens, that's maybe we have a kind of like allergen contaminations for the product, which is not well declared on the label itself. And this is can lead to a kind of like an allergen issue. And finally, it can lead a consumer illness related to such allergens. Again, for the foreign matters, sometimes there are some kind of like plastic or like wooden piece you can find in the product itself. And how we can deal with all of this, we need to exactly do a kind of like root cause analysis or failure root cause analysis in order to have a proper investigation for such incident. For the non-food related incidents, we have a natural disaster like an earthquake, like flood, storm, and also there is a man-made, which is power plant accidents and poor political unrest, resource depletion. So for power plant accidents, sometimes in some companies, they are dealing with some chilled and frozen items, and this need a specific temperature for the warehousing, storage, or even for the process area. So how we can deal with such issue for the products as related to the safety factor. This is one of the also a real cause for the food safety instance. So the third thing that we need to look on it is how we can formulate an incident management team. This is the key point that's really we need to have it in a more proper way. As a food manufacturer, and to be in a secure position, the organization must need to assess all possible causes of potential incidents and its risk of occurrence. But actually, this is not practical and it's not logic to get all the possible causes. So we get only the reasonable possible causes that can be evaluated in our business continuity or risk management plan. So, however, before this information can be gathered, an incident management team would need to be formed. This team would need to look at the risk for potential incidents and how crisis may be avoided. So, for the risk management team, the formation and composition of the risk management team is very similar to those what we have it in the HACCP. So this should be a multidisciplinary, comprising staff from key departments, and some circumstances may be deemed necessary to include members external to the company. So we'll see some examples for the risk management team. That's definitely should be have a team members from supply chain, QA, commercial, legal, communications, operations, HR, finance, insurance, information technology. So here, sometimes the insurance, it would be a kind of like an external member, but again, most of the membership for this team coming from the internally inside the organization itself from different departments. So we already now discussed about the key elements for the incident process, which is the risk management incident, and finally the crisis. And then we talk about the real causes for the instance, and finally the team of the incident itself. So we're starting now going for the incident management process. So first process or first step for any incident management, that's we need first to identify the food risk or the food safety incident. So the incidents, as we said before, have many possible causes as the food related and non-food related. And during setup of such programs, the risk management team need to identify as many causes as it can, because this is all will help us of how we are dealing with the incident and how we can prevent to be going to the crisis as we described before. So, and after we have an example item such as allergen contamination from non-comprehensive list presented earlier in this discussion, we need to be identified. So again, that's all the possible causes should be clearly defined and identified before we start to do any kind of incident management process. Second step is identification of information sources. So now we have the incident management team, we identify our incident, then we need to get or select the right information sources, which can come from the suppliers, from customers, government, local authority, non-governmental organizations, internal. For example, there is one product that we have, or maybe have a kind of like foreign matters. So we need to check with our customers what is exactly the batch code or the production dates or the time code for such products. Also from suppliers, we need to check the raw materials that's going to these products. That's from the internally, we need to check with all the departments as well and see how we can trace or how we can handle such incidents inside the plant or inside the factory itself. The third step for the incident management process is to go and make setup of information gathering protocol. This is also a very important step. That's how the information might come from. Tools must be in place to efficiently capture it. At this point, it's necessary to ensure that the protocol established is very fast, accurate, and from a reliable resource. So in case that sometimes we get an information from an unreliable resource, and this information will mislead the whole incident management process. And again, because this incident we should not go into the crisis, so we need to act in a very fast way and more accurate rather than to again do the whole incident management process. So the information has to be confirmed and verified before any action is taken, because this is the main source of the information for our incident itself. For the fourth step, this is what we call an alerting system. Once information has been received, now it's a time to make an alert and also to notify the relevant personnel. And this notification would need to cascade to the activation for the risk management team. So based on the information, based on the possible causes, based on the alerting system, we need now to go and activate the risk management team. So on the fifth step, which is also one of the key important point, is to do a kind of like initial briefing or initial discussion or evaluating the situation and the incident itself. So we start by have a meeting as a risk management team, evaluate the situation, identify resources that's needed, and composition for the team would be based on subject matter experts, personnel availability, and expertise required. So key responsibilities here need to be assigned to gather the full team, schedule the next briefing, and most importantly, to notify senior management on the status quo. This is one of the key important point actually, that sometimes we don't have the full picture for the whole structure of the organization or for what's happened outside the organization, which it can be having with the senior, have this with the senior management team. So is it important that we need really to communicate such initial things to the senior management in order to get more picture, more bigger information, and to just prevent the incident to going to be a crisis. Here is the main step for the incident management process is a full team briefings, or it's a full team discussions and managing for the whole incident. So when the full team has been gathered, strict formalized approach, and then essential for clarity and efficiency, a possible format should entail all of the following points. First, we need to put on the templates that we have it, the risk management team leader and his roles and responsibilities, and do a kind of like self-introduction. And then we need to have a roll call, and then the risk management team checklist, and should be developed using the following points to capture all the relevant informations. First, the incident description, what was happened? Is there any direct, indirect, or no direct link with the organization? What is the external awareness level? What is the extent of customer personal effects? Is it a food poisoning, illness, or the customer can go and talk to the authority or government? Is there any short or long-term duration? Maybe there is something that's really we need to change our infrastructure or redesign some of our process that it can take a long term. Is there any additional work in progress or needed? And this also should be recorded there. And the incident status. What are the risk management team objectives? What exactly the team need to do? We need to do a root cause analysis. We need to do a kind of like risk management, or to do a product investigation again and see what is the kind of possibilities, what is the actions that we need to do it, what communication is required or needed, what resources we need to have it, and response timelines. Sometimes the customer, they give it the organization like 48 hours to reply to such issue or incident. So we need again to respond during this timeline. And the response effectiveness should be accurate, getting all the informations and also have all the possible causes and giving all the required actions related to such instance and how this could have happened. So the way of handling this incident and the way of communicating this to the other parties, it should be written down in such template there. And then we have the administrator. Administrator definitely is the key information for the calls, meetings, getting all the minutes of meeting, and all should be captured, approved, and distributed after the calls and meetings. And creation of a central data information file would allow all members of the team to access relevant data during and after the incident itself. We have also definitely the team actions, which is part of the root cause analysis. After we're doing all the fishbone diagram analysis and checking all the possible causes, so we need to get some actions related to the team. Part of the actions like identify additional sources and support, identify major stakeholders and potential issues, and identify communication strategy. Select a good communicator who can relate to the audience. So we have definitely most of the companies, they have a public relation or corporate affair department. So such a department, most of the time, they are the main communicator or good communicator for the outside or for the public people. So also there is a need to set a strategy to ensure the appropriate information is communicated at the correct time and an appropriate manner. The information presented should satisfy the following criteria. We have a concern, which it should be genuine understanding of the situation of those affected, control, provide confidence that the situation is well in hand, and commitment shows the organization will not stop until the situation has been resolved. So this is the three main key points that the information should be presented in order to be more effective and more reliable to the person or the external party itself. The seventh step, which is the handover. Some issues will persist for a long time, as I said before, redesign for the whole process or doing some kind of infrastructure change. And this may require a change in the team makeup. So in such case, the handover protocol wouldn't be needed. A logical and informative format would be the best option, which should involve the new member being presented to the administrator introducing the new member to the risk management team, and for a short period, both new and outgoing members participating in the engagement. When all the members for risk management team are satisfied with the handover, it will be finalized, and finally logging all of such process. So this is like a kind of like for the long-term team or for the long-term process for the incident management itself. And on the number 8, we have what we call a stand-down checklist. The risk management team need to decide at some point that stand-down is necessary. So before doing such things, we need to have do all members agree on the stand-down? Does senior management agree on the stand-down, and have relevant stakeholders acknowledge that normal activities may commence? So this is also, we should not neglect, and we should put it there as a part of the incident management process. So when these points have been agreed on, those checkpoints should be followed. The risk management team leader need to lead the team debrief on stand down to establish key learnings, and the team leader to ensure additional response teams, and also administrator to ensure all log sheets, emails, notes are collected and filed. Risk management team to monitor the situation to assess whether the issue could reoccur or not, and team leader HR to consider whether employees could be suffering from managing the issue and consider appropriate strategies. So risk management team also to consider whether follow-up engagement is required with any of the identified stakeholders, and also consider sending thank you notes to those who have provided support both internally and externally. And with this process in place, a false sense of security will often arise, and the document encompassing the process may be a glossy corporate book, but few people in the organization would know of it. So in order to make the process live, it needs to be communicated, acknowledged, trained, and implemented. This is also a very important point, rather than to just put all of this on the book and no one will look on it. So we need to have a better or effective communication and training and implementation as well. And this is the main role for verification and continuous improvement. So at a later date, the effectiveness of training and suitability of such scenarios should be tested. Unannounced tests serve best to make the staff reactions and actions in managing the instance more robust. Verification also may be triggered internally or externally. So both have their advantage and disadvantage. Whichever approach is taken, the more challenging the verification, the stronger the system over time. So don't go for like a small instance that can be happen. Go for the more complicated one, for the long-term one, and make a kind of like an unannounced test and see what kind of challenges, what kind of issues that you are facing during handling of this instance. You need to put also key performance indicators for your incident management test and see how we are rely on such KPIs, how we can really succeed of handling the whole incident in a more organized way. The same what we have discussed before is to have a really team member, risk management team member, and then you need to identify the risk. You need to get all the possible causes. You need to build a strong information system based on the reliable resources, and finally need to do a kind of like a root cause analysis and doing a risk assessment and investigation in order to get actions. And finally, you need to verify and doing a kind of like continuous improvement. So after verification process or after an actual instance, which is itself a verification for the system, a review is recommended for learning and improvement. So improvements should be or maybe better in training and communication, or perhaps in tougher and more complex scenarios to challenge the staff. Changes based on the review should be logged to allow tracking and avoiding reversal to older versions of the verification process. And again, we need to communicate all of the changes, and we need to also effectively implement all of new changes there. So for the our conclusions there, risk of an incident will always exist. So we have every day a risk, we'll have every day an instance, but how we can rely or how we can prepare for our incident, it's really defines the success of an organization in its incident management. So in order to achieve success, appropriate process need to be developed, communicated, and training should be provided and verified as well. Again, for gathering the correct team members and setting correct protocols is vital for clear, effective, accurate, efficient management. And this team would have a clear task, as we said, that should have a risk management team objectives to logically ascertain the necessary information, alert all the relevant stakeholders, analyze the data, and finally act upon the situation itself. So the actions would also need to be designed to stop the incident from evolving into a crisis. Communication to the stakeholders would need to be focused and directed to address concern, show that the situation is under control, and demonstrate the commitment that the organization has to solve the issue. And everything would need to be documented, very important to communicate as well, to enable the risk management team to track and learn from actions taken. It would be a kind of like previous learnings and history, and definitely we need to go back and see if we have the same instance happen. So we have a problem on our incident management on the previous one. That's why it's reoccurred again. And from time to time, the system would need to be verified, reviewed for continuous improvement. That's it. Thank you.